Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Bad Baby. And tonight we are so honored to have Michael Horn with us. Michael is an American media representative for the Billie MEIER case of UFO contacts. And I am not going to go any farther with that because I am going to let Michael explain to us exactly who Billie MEIER is and give us a brief synopsis on Billie and why he was contacted. We also are going to get into some of the prophecies and predictions that have come true and what is to come. Welcome to the show, Michael, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here. We haven't spoken for a while, so it's kind of neat to revisit.
Oh, that's special. Yeah, Robert's not with me anymore.
Oh, okay. So it's now it's your show and completely.
Yes, it always was my show. He was my co-host.
Oh, dare I ask has he gone to do something else or what?
Well, unfortunately, his parents both passed away. First his father, and then his
Oh,
mother. And then after his mother passed away, he took it pretty hard. He kind of like cut himself off from everybody. And he just was so heartbroken. He told me, he said, I won't be coming back. And I don't think ever. And he won't even answer my emails. So I don't
oh,
know what's going on with him.
that's pretty rough. Well, my heart goes out to him. That's
Yes.
difficult.
I miss him. He was my cutie patootie.
Well, it's good to speak about it on that note, have that kind of a sense. So he's held in a sweet place and by you and all of us that know him, at least know him through this medium. So my good
Yes.
thoughts go out to him too.
Okay, Michael, give us a brief, short version for those who don't know who Billie MEIER is and exactly how Billie was contacted, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Billie MEIER is a now 82-year-old man living in Switzerland, where he was born, and 77 plus years ago, he had his first contact, first telepathically and then face to face with people who are actually called the PLEIADIANS. They're an extraterrestrial human race, so we're told, who have a particular mission in terms of Earth and its people, all of us on Earth, and that periodically they have worked with a person on Earth as a contactee and to use the term accurately, a prophet who would tell certain things, who would announce information and bring forward prophecies and predictions and what have you. But in all of the previous cases, all of these contacts and all of the work with a human being took place, and during times when there was not any significant level of reading and writing going on among the populace. It was only, a very small select number of people who could read and write, and that was in part what also complicated matters, and that all of the previous attempts to bring to the people of Earth the information that these extraterrestrials have been keeping for us, so to speak, and working each time with a prophet to bring to us, it's been corrupted, changed, altered, turned into religions and sects and cults. So Billie MEIER's task in this life, which began, as I say, when he was about 5 years of age, was to be prepared for a very difficult and rigorous life during which he would have many astoundingly good and astoundingly bad experiences, but all through it all, his mission would be to bring forward, once again, for the final time during the electronic age, the spiritual teaching, so that the people of Earth could have this in an unadulterated form, that it could be preserved and perpetuated for a long, long time to come, so that we would be able to, if we choose to learn it and test it and apply it and implement it in our lives, and hopefully make a course correction for our world if we can do it in time before we destroy ourselves. So that's kind of one version of who Billie MEIER is. And of course, there's many things to talk about in his life in terms of his work, his mission, what he's done, uh, his hardships, and all the rest. But essentially, he functions as the contact person, and he is the only verifiable, scientifically proven, contact person UFO case with extraterrestrials, despite what a lot of people may think about other claims or their own experiences. We have not been ever able to substantiate any other actual provable, authentic UFO contact case, and certainly no evidence it's not even remotely comparable to what's in this case. So that's some place to start, so that maybe questions would arise about that, and I'll be glad to try to address that.
Okay, and the Polarians, they are not here to harm us, are they? They are here to inform us and try to help us to evolve. Isn't that true?
Well, sure, and the evidence for that is, even in terms of these contacts, have been going on for over 77 years, and the first contacts, in terms of working with a so-called prophet contact person, were over 13,000 years ago, give or take, somewhere in there. And so clearly, had this race, with all of its technology and abilities, had it the intention to do us harm, even in this current epoch, they could have destroyed the planet, enslaved it, done whatever they want long ago, before we even had weapons that would be remotely effective in dealing with very, very advanced race that could dominate the planet in a matter of minutes and nothing to it. So, any worries about this race, if people say, well, we accept the idea this race really exists, but what if they are this, or what if they, and then we realize, no, the evidence shows us that there's been no harm. We do all the harm necessary to ourselves
Yeah.
unnecessarily. So no.
How do they feel about the nuclear power that we have on this planet? Do you know how they feel about that?
Well, sure, because in this material, now there are over 45,000 pages of information in this case. And a lot of it deals with viewpoints on the various terrestrial powers, military, and all the rest. And basically, our country is viewed as being uniquely insane, and that its policies that have been in place for, I don't know, 80 years or more, whatever it is, not only threaten the entire world, but will, if we do not make a course correction, will be responsible for our country being turned into a swampy cinder here. Uh, it's grim, because the people, many people in power, at least certain people in power, know that this case exists. They know it's real. They know the information, and they plunge ahead with absolutely insane policies, violence, aggression, domination, and the predictions and prophecies and predictions about the outcome of these times does not favor our survival in the least. It is very specific, and unless people wake up and stop wasting their time with imaginary nonsense and stupid dead-end politics and belief systems, this country will be, well, they use very strong language as to what will happen here with certainty if we do not course correct. And there's no indication that we're going to do it. So it'd
Yeah.
be nice, to make some kind of flowery pronouncement about the Space Brothers and America and aliens. It's all garbage, utter garbage. There isn't a word of truth to that crap. And, it's like the internet and the various alternative communities that think they have the inside scoop and everything, and the Q this and the that. It goes nowhere. It's all just this information distraction. When you boil it down, where's the meat? And there isn't any. It's a very small amount, if there is. I mean, some things maybe some of these people get right, but all the people who are hosting online shows talking about, the Trump administration and this and that and the deep state, they don't know anything more than, what they can gather from most of this information shared by other people, and they really have no sense of how to deal with this stuff. We cannot deal with this in the same mindset that has obviously created the mess. Pardon me.
Yeah. Isn't it I have heard that they are very concerned that if we do use these nukes that it will throw the earth off kilter and affect the whole solar system. Uh do you think they have the technology to prevent that from happening?
Oh, they would have the technology, but they're not going to, because the first of all, with all of the atomic testing and explosions that have taken place in the past, um, well, there is already a pole shift underway. The magnetics of the Earth have been badly altered. The climate is not any longer in climate change, it's in climate destruction. And Billy Meier is the first person to warn about it starting in 1951. When he's 14 years of age, he publishes information specifically about man-made climate change and unnatural global warming, the destruction of the ozone. It goes on and on. It's the deepest, most profound, and still most accurate information. All of the environmental groups that are carrying on, and carbon credits, and let's save the earth, they're clueless. They're truly
Yeah.
clueless. They don't know. Parts of the oceans are already dead. The magnitude of this is enormous. And unfortunately, those persons, those organizations that have a voice, that have concerned people, they're clueless. And they don't want to know about this because they want to go and push their agenda and raise money and do their little things. It's staggering how the
Yeah.
reality of it is
I
just.
know. So heartbreaking. I mean, it's not a positive outlook for humanity. I had read the other day that like 2/3 of the coral reefs are dead in the ocean. So many of the sea life is dead. I mean, like over a third of this, and 2/3 of the whales. The dolphins are washing up. I mean, everything's dying at mass extinction level, and we worry about a wall.
Well, there is a time and place for things to be considered. Some things that, even the Pleiadians have said certain things are necessary in terms of being concerned about how to protect our countries and our people. There are ways to do that. There are ways that may work, ways that won't. But the underlying problem is that the policies of our country have led to the imbalances, the desire for people to penetrate the country to do ill, the desire for people to abandon their responsibility to their own countries, to come here to just take advantage of the economics. It's all messed up. And at
Yeah.
the heart of all that, this is, at the heart of all that, it is policies that come out of greed and power hunger, and goes back a long way. And, I noticed in the chat room, somebody says, who do we think is behind all this evil? Well, human beings are behind the evil. It isn't like, extraterrestrials. There have been in the past extraterrestrials who've interfered with Earth, but it's pretty much way in the past. And what we are dealing with here is coming to terms with what real self-responsibility is. People who think that somebody's going to come and save us, an ET, a Messiah, a Savior, gosh knows what. That's more utter nonsense. It doesn't work that way. We are responsible for ourselves, for our planet, for our lives, for what comes. And we have to recognize that all throughout human history, we've seen the abdication of true self-responsibility. So when politics and religion start, exerting their influences long ago and build in their, effects, people give up their personal power and their personal self-responsibility. And by doing that, we get all of this utter nonsense and terrible stuff. We are too far in the pit right now for certain outcomes to get better. We just have to understand. We will see it. the Plejaren told MEIER in 1975, and in was it 2012, that if things didn't change in the consciousness in America, then after 2020, the superpower USA would cease to exist. Now, that doesn't mean that suddenly the country's blown up. It means that as a superpower and as a United States of America, we are headed for anarchy. We're headed for two civil wars. MEIER published two warnings about that, one in 1981 and one in 1987. And you know, I noticed there's someone in the chat room who's posting stuff who's apparently an anti-Semite and all the rest, not unusual these days, and some kind of, he's on a religious kick. You know, here's the thing I always ask religious people, and by the way, people are free to believe anything they want. It's too bad when a belief system then allows people to demonize broadly one group or another. It's a delusion. But the other part of that is that every religion, everyone, rests on a premise, and that premise is this: what's in this book is true because this book says it's true. You can't walk into a courtroom with that, and you can't walk into a kindergarten. So when people, you know, pound on one belief system or another and espouse it, it's the truth, we should at least, if we're going to be reasonable, understand that the source of that is a book, and there are many books, and there's many belief systems. And, you know, it's just like, it's a sad thing. So if we can choose to believe what we want, but we have to have values, real values that do not discriminate against others, rather that they embrace human beings as being of equal value and worth, essentially, even whether we have equal abilities, talents, equal wealth, or whatever. It's irrelevant. Those are roles. We have to have values that are for love and for peace and freedom and harmony. And any belief system, political, religious, or otherwise, that espouses demonizing a people, then you see, you know, or making it others who don't have the same belief wrong or doomed, or they're, you know, the fallen ones, or whatever, then you know that there's something delusional going on, and it's out of step with life itself. Life itself doesn't have belief systems. Things are either so, they're either true or they're not. And so we try to find out what the truth is. We don't cling to things that, as much as we may like them, can't be established as universally true. So, you know, we're in a soup here. I mean, Earth is, you know, we're messed up. But
Yeah.
the answer for that is something else, and that answer is contained within the MEIER case. As far as I'm concerned, it's been contained within this material for thousands of years. But I'm sorry I interrupted you.
That's okay. Just don't let the chat distract you. If it gets too distracting, I can just mute them all and stop them from the nonsense. And that's all they're trying to do, is get you off topic.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. I just thought it's worth saying that, because,
Addressing it.
you know,
I hear you.
yeah,
Okay, let's go over, you know, the validity of some of the predictions that Billie had given in the past, and that has actually come true, that the information that was given to him by the Pleiadians. And then we're going to get into what we have coming in the future. And I do want to get onto the topic of the pole shift, which we both know that is gradually happening now,
yeah,
but we have only just begun, as far as I'm concerned.
right. Well, you know, in terms of what has been predicted or prophesied in the past, there's so many things. For instance, let's go back to, we'll go back to 1951, and we'll actually a little later go to 1948, because there's some powerful stuff in there that came from MEIER's extraterrestrial teacher. But in 1951, beginning then, and then again in 1950, let's see, 58, 64, 72, 72, all of these different things have been published verifiably before they happened. Okay, so MEIER is first in 1951 warning about man-made climate change, about unnatural global warming, the destruction of the ozone tied into atomic bomb testing and explosions. He's talking about, and this is going to be a hot button with a lot of people because they don't understand it, but at that time they already were saying the problems that the people on earth have and will have, and which will threaten to utterly destroy them, are rooted in overpopulation. Oh gosh, dare we say that? Well, that doesn't mean go and kill people or genocides or what have you. It means that if we understood nature, if we understood the laws of nature, the necessary steps for creating balance through observing cycles in nature, we would be wise enough to not over procreate so that we are on top of each other, creating strife and hostility, so that we are exhausting resources on earth, so that we actually contribute to our own poisoning, because through the over demand for food and resources, we have to create, we've had these companies that create terribly toxic chemical pesticides, herbicides, weeds, whatever, and that are sprayed on everything, that get into all crops, all water, into the air, and are poisoning people, such as things like glyphosate, which are just in amazingly, amazingly toxic. And finally, Monsanto at least was held to account a little bit on that. But if we looked at nature, if we looked at the creatures in nature, how balance is maintained, where nature has a way of keeping populations, if they're undisturbed, populations of different creatures, from insects to birds and animals and everything else, maintain a certain natural balance. There's prey, there's predators, all sorts of things. And we are not limited to the instincts of animals. So if we observe things, we could control our population so that everybody would have enough. So we wouldn't be climbing and clambering over each other. We wouldn't have to invade countries to try to steal their resources and all the rest of it. So we end up with an imbalance in population, leading to all sorts of things. And then for many people, if you mention that, they think you're for eugenics and genocide. No, there's natural ways, birth regulations, where people, when we get a hold of ourselves and bring populations into balance, the environment starts to clear up, the pollution is reduced, we can regenerate things more naturally. So instead of all of the imaginary aliens and saviors and all the rest of the stuff where we're looking for phenomenon, we have to again look to the core of these problems as they're expressed even in the prophecies and predictions. Human beings, you're over procreating, you're creating all these problems, and so therefore these things are going to occur. And look, in 1958, Billy Meier specifically foretells the fall of the Berlin Wall. He foretells that there will be 2 U.S.-Iraq Gulf Wars. The second one will be led by a president who's the son of a former president. It'll lead to terrorism and torture and disasters. He foretells that we will have transactions that will be made with plastic bank cards, that we will carry our telephones on us. He foretells the danger of a not then yet existing European Union, which, along with the United States, would attempt to biochip everybody on the face of the earth. He foretells the terrible epidemic of the abuse of children and women, the sale of organs from children who are killed. I mean, all the stuff that people are even talking about today. Well, he already published it. We know this has been available for years and decades. The warnings that this man has put out that have never been heeded, that people will lose their sense of reality. They'll become dazzled by what they see, and that everybody, 1958, he says this, everybody will have a television and a new device being developed, a computer in their homes, and they will all be interconnected electronically around the world. We call that today the internet. And there's another 250 specific predictions in that thing, probably half of which have already come true. And then we keep going. We go up to 1981 and 87 with the Henoch prophecies. These are the original prophecies of the prophet who in German is called Henoch, and we know him as Enoch. And so in there, in the Enoch or Henoch prophecies, we learn about a lot of things. Yes, foretelling of the destruction of the World Trade Center by terrorism, the foretelling of Russian troop movements that didn't even happen until 7 years ago, a decade after I had this stuff printed up on my website, the Ebola epidemic, the Russian America coming to blows in a huge way, the fact that Russia would move its troops to a place called Arkhangelsk in preparation for attacks against Scandinavia prior to coming and attacking this country because of our endless provocation of it. All this stuff is in there. All this stuff is in there. And then people want to worry about their, small-minded prejudices. They have to demonize people. They are, racists. They're, supremacists. They're of any race or color. You have supremacists on the right and on the white, and you've got them on the left and black. And this is what's become of this world where people have been reduced to such a low level willingly. They gobble up everything that's published online, and when you try to share some truth with them, they get crazy. Billy has survived 23 attempts on his life for his trouble, and of course he keeps going. For those who maybe still have some functioning brain cells, who want to find out what the truth in life is, not just beliefs.
Yeah. You had spoke on one of the other shows that we did about disease, mad cow disease actually spreading into other animals and then
Yep.
on to human beings. We are seeing this right now with
Yep.
the deer.
That's
The
right.
deer. They're
The
calling
deer.
it zombie. What's it called? Zombie disease or something like that?
Zombie deer or something. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. That is exactly right. And again, as you said, MEIER long ago specifically foretold this, and we ain't seen nothing yet, because there's going to be more, not just that, but more of these cross-species diseases that we thought were wiped out are going to reappear. You've got epidemics coming. We have some nasty stuff coming our way. And again, it's going to spread. These things will spread because we are overpopulated. We have such mass levels of travel going on, people flooding into countries with already many peoples have diseases which, when they are introduced into a society where there's no previous history and there's no resistance, then you're spreading those epidemics. I mean, it happened throughout history, but we're really going to be seeing it in full now. People have been, look, I have my film called And Did They Listen? The people were warned, and did they listen? And the answer apparently is no. And no matter how much and how many times, and there's some people that you will never be able to fully reach because they're locked into denial or beliefs or anger or prejudices, or whatever form of insanity, conspiracies. Everything's a conspiracy. There are some conspiracies. It's not that there aren't, but most of the people that talk about conspiracies don't know a damn thing about it anyhow. They just carry on, and they want the excitement factor. It's like Alex Jones. He hits on things that are true, but he goes off into absolutely lunatic things. He promotes conflict and violence, info wars, the war room. And I think, we've sent him enough information that he knows that the MEIER case is real, but he's a profiteer.
I'm not a big fan of his anyways. I'm not a fan of his, and he's not a fan of mine. He thinks I'm woo. I could care less what he thinks. I am who I am.
Look, what are you going to do? You can't please everybody. That's fine. It's just a matter of, people have to prioritize things in their lives, and they're either going to prioritize, crazy stuff and being angry, or they're going to say, well, how do I get myself out of it? What do I do to improve my life? How is there an answer? Because politics and religion have failed everybody, because what the same old stuff all the time. Politics makes people stupid. I have to just tell you, it is such a stupid system. I don't know why people are political. Why bother? There are either things in life that are valid and worth doing and for all people, or there aren't. It isn't about, well, support my project and I'll support yours. Why? What if either or neither of them are worthless? We still have to make deals like that to do the right thing, and people keep doing this stuff. So we're going to continue to get mega stupid, mega stupid.
You know, and the thing is, people waste so much energy on nonsense, Michael. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a young girl that's just got 1 million views on YouTube because she has a tennis shoe throwing challenge. She can throw her tennis shoes and they land upright every time. So everybody's doing it. Oh, look, I can throw my tennis shoes. Well, here, I got a challenge for you. Take 2 garbage bags and clean the planet up. Fill 2 garbage bags instead of throwing 2 tennis shoes, and then I'll be impressed. You know?
I mean, I'll just say this with all due respect, because it started here. Americans have been dumbed down willingly to a level that must make the powers that be absolutely hysterical, looking at people who trivialize their damn lives to such a degree that their insignificance to themselves, let alone anybody else, is something of special worth in itself. That people have willingly reduced themselves to less significance than than a mouse on the planet. With all this stuff for celebrity and temporary fame and money or whatever. That's what this country is about, unfortunately, in a mega way. There are good people here, as there are everywhere, but we have wholesale gone into collective insanity. We elect insane people to offices. We do insane things. We have insane policies. And we never focus on the deeper inner reality where we touch into what life itself is about, what creation is. We think it's this crap deal. I mean, pretty hopeless stuff, really. Billie's been doing his work. He started when he was 5 to learn, and since he was 14, he's been publishing stuff. And they never publish erroneous, certainly not scientific stuff. It's always accurate because they're way ahead of us. And they do that just so we'll pay attention. First, they show the UFOs, get the controversy going to catch people's attention, not to have us make a career out of chasing lights in the sky. But the imbeciles, the MUFONs, and the rest, that's how they control people, chase lights. So then, in the MEIER case, they have all this voluminous scientific and geopolitical prophetic information. It's always right because they have time travel and other things. And then you'd think people would want to know, well, why did they do all that? What's the reason for it? It's not to give me a gig. It's not for us to chase lights in the sky. What is this for? It's so that we will turn to the recommendations, no coercion, the recommendations in the spiritual teaching, which is a non-religious, belief-free teaching. Just like you want to learn computers, you want to learn electronics, or how to fix a car, or how to grow plants. You read instructions, you test them out by following the instruction, but you're not compelled to. You don't have to learn how to fix cars or how computers work or how to plant a garden. If that's your interest, you go and you study it, and then you apply it. And if it works, you keep going. That's the whole reason for this thing with Billie MEIER. For us to go to the books, to the teaching, a lot of which is free online, and a lot of it is wonderful books, English language, German language, what have you.
Speaking of free online, if someone wants to find out more about what you're trying to get out there, why don't you tell them where they go? It's Flyby, is that it? Flyby?
They can go to...
I apologize.
That's okay. I have a blog which is very active, which is called theyflyblog.com. theyflyblog.com. I have a website, theyfly.com. There's tons of free information on both. I have well over 800 and, I don't know, 50 articles on my blog and a few hundred more on my website. All of that stuff is free. Then if people are really interested, then they can get a DVD, a movie, they can get books. And then there are study groups all over the world where people voluntarily get together and they study and they discuss with each other, and quietly under the radar. They're not trying to change the world and go out and start cults and stupid things. Just by coming together. We have one where I live, not far from me. People in Michigan and California and everywhere. There's small groups popping up all the time. People studying. It's voluntary. It's not required. There's no punishment. You're not going to go to hell if you don't look at this, and you're not going to heaven, both of which places don't exist, of course. If you do this work, you find out for yourself what the value of it is. And then if it's working, your life is getting better, and you realize all the hysteria online and the news and the drama, everybody going nuts in the world, is absolutely no value. It's much more rewarding to learn how to improve your own life. And that's what we focus
on. Okay, so tell us, Michael, what the Pleiadians say happens to our spirit or our soul after we pass.
Sure. Okay, let's define those a little better. The term soul actually refers to something else. So soul is a term that was created to refer to the psyche of a human being, which is located primarily around the solar plexus, soul plexus. So this is where emotions, the plexus of nerves, a lot of the personality is kind of centered. We experience life quite a bit through that.
Where we get a gut feeling.
And certain things are connected
intuition,
to that. But that's
intuition.
all temporary. Yeah, intuition. This is temporary, though, with each life. We have this is the temporary construct, the psyche. The spirit, which is located deep inside the center of the brain, is the eternal, immortal part of a human being. Now, the funny part here, this psyche thing is more of what we identify with, our personality, our intuition, all this stuff. When we pass over, when we die, all of this content and everything in our life is in the process of dissolving, but that information is all being stored in what's called a storage bank, just to put it in simple terms. And the spirit, this eternal, immortal part, is extracting all of the necessary experiences, knowledge, and wisdom, etc. And it isn't our reality. It is not something where we pass over. We don't see Aunt Joni and Uncle Richie running around the field with the kids. Nothing there.
But we do a life review, correct?
Well, that's open to a little bit of interpretation. I think even in the MEIER material, there's something that happens where the human being, as they're passing over, has their consciousness of all these things in their life. Whatever. We also we create our own judgment and punishment. A lot of times people are very vengeful and they want to make sure that, that person did this, so he's got to die or be punished. It's not fair if they live. And what is said in the MEIER material, and I can't go into it in depth because I'm not expert in all that, but when people who've done really horrific things are dying in that process, their consciousness is dealing with it. It may not show on their face, but the essence of that person, the last thing that personality is experiencing on their way out is the consequences of all the damage they've done to others. So it's probably a good idea for any number of reasons, to just try to live as a decent human being. So when the spirit passes and the psyche, the personality, all that stuff is dissolving, and the content of that, experiences and all, are being apportioned in the proper places, if you will, the spirit passes over into what's called the beyond. It's kind of like an etheric realm right here, but we can't see it. It's in an etheric dimension, if you will. And the spirits are just there, kind of assimilating a state of rest, if we want to use that term, until it's time for the reincarnation of the spirit into another, to enliven a new personality. So we are never the same person, that we were previously in any lifetime. So by the actual laws of reincarnation, there can never be a return of Jesus or a return of the Buddha or anything else, because that personality, if they ever existed, and some haven't, but another story, that personality is gone. The spirit form for that being has gone into the beyond, and in a timely manner, it will reincarnate. And our past lives don't necessarily have anything to do at all with our next incarnations, our future lives. It isn't like that. We're not burdened by karma. We don't come into life with heavy debts. There may be lessons that still the personality will have to learn because it didn't fully learn, but we're not punished. There's no original sin. That garbage, that horrible garbage that burdens people, has burdened millions and billions of people that have that belief system. They're sinners. Someone died for their sins before they were born. I mean, if we ever thought through some of this garbage, we'd go, well, gee, how did we ever believe that? And that's coming from the same folks that have been abusing children for centuries. We're only finding out
Yeah.
about it.
Well,
And so,
I find it ironic that Nancy Pelosi advocates for abortion of a child after it's born, and here she has ashes on her forehead this morning.
well,
You know?
that is, look, you don't have to have any religious belief to know that people who are effectively advocating for infanticide are degenerates. They're, pardon me, goddamn degenerates who have lost their minds in their power, hunger, and greed. They should be
Yes.
politely escorted out of the building and locked up somewhere where they can't do any more damage to anybody. The people on that side of the political aisle are absolutely degenerate and insane, and they will do anything for votes. They will do, and illegal
Yeah.
immigration is based on that too. Bring people in who will vote. Look, this
Okay,
kind of
so
stuff.
speaking on
Yeah,
that topic, now let me interrupt you for a minute.
yeah, sure, sure.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Go,
I
go,
got
go.
to get these questions in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. On that note, Billie talks about that there is going to be division and civil war in the United States.
Correct.
Is this do you see this involving with this Black Lives Matter and the KKK is against the Black Lives Matter and all the disruption that's going on in our country right now? Do you see this prophecy coming true?
Yeah. When I first read it, it was in his 81 publication. I saw that in 1986. I was on Westwood Avenue Boulevard in Los Angeles with a guy named Randy Winters. He and I both were involved in early stages. He was representing the case. I was just learning stuff about it. And I read Billie talking about in the future, the United States of America will have two terrible civil wars, one following upon the other, and it can't be helped that there'll be a breakup into 4 or 5 territories. And I laughed. I said, Randy, what's he talking about, this guy? Civil war in America. What? I'm not laughing. Who's laughing now? No, all the people in the media now, and we sent this information, a lot of people, we told civil wars have been 4 wars. Oh, no, or they ignore it. Now everybody's worried about, of course it's coming. We're in the early stages of it. All the
Hmm.
idiots in politics are doing everything they can to polarize themselves and against others. The far right is going to, it started here with the left, with all of the violence coming from the Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all that stuff, neither of which really, represent anything other than the lunatics who subscribe to their beliefs. They went out, they were, creating violence against people. But people have to understand that the right wing, the militias, uh, are far better prepared, if you can put it that way. You have far right racist groups, the Aryan Brotherhood, you've got, the KKK and all these other offshoots.
Yeah.
So the stupid people on the left that provoke this stuff, they're going to be met with, terrible results. and the country will be ripped apart. I don't see how it can't, because the relentless polarization. You've got people that are, so bonehead stupid that go
Yeah.
out and foment stuff, and you've got,
So
you
what
know,
happens to the good, to the innocent people, to the children? Is there a lot of loss
it,
of life?
well, I think it's going to be pretty bad, because, see, this is where we come right back to the part of this core teaching. The spiritual teaching is about 100% self-responsibility, not falling into beliefs, political, religion, choosing your thoughts, choosing your own feelings and actions according to eternally valid universal principles of life, the laws of creation, the recommendations and advice in the spiritual teaching, none of which ever encourages or promotes this polarization, this us against them. It's all about
Right.
love, peace, freedom, harmony,
Exactly.
reasonableness. Okay, so to answer your question,
I must have trained myself early because I'm always telling people if I need a life manager, I'll let you know and I'll do my own thinking. And I
yeah,
get criticized so terribly for people that I have on my show. I don't, yeah, what's wrong with you? And I thought, hey, I don't need your permission to have someone on. How do you learn if you don't look in every aspect of something?
you can't really. And with here's the thing. I'll tell people. We'll back up in a second. I'll finish this thought, and then I'm going to back up on the Meyer case to show you how
Okay.
you know it's real. But when you just said that, what about the kids and the innocent people? If we, the thinking, conscious adults of any age, don't choose, as Meyer was told, if the people in America don't change their direction, the country will be effectively destroyed. We are we're less than a year away. I mean, from a turning point. We're going to see things between now and 2020, environmentally, geopolitically, upheavals, unexpected things, assassinations, you name it. So, and then that only gets worse. This is still the picnic. It's still years to come before things are even worse. Nothing to celebrate there. But the point being here, those of us that are concerned have to start looking at what can we do? How do we change our own thinking, our own behavior, work, communicate within our families, within our communities, start becoming sensible and sane, create healthily interdependent, interconnected relationships with people, uh, for food and water and community, and better start soon, folks. I mean, this is not going to. First of all, for the people on the right, Trump isn't going to save anything. The the deep state isn't about to be undone with a magic wave of a golf club at whatever Morrow, whatever he's at there. I don't even know all the names of those places, but this is the illusion. Oh, the trials are starting in the sealed indictments, and Hillary's going to prison, and the deep state's done for, and all the pedophiles are going to be arrested. Well, there are people trying to clean things up. I give them that, but you're dealing with a very, very deeply entrenched and hugely powerful, not even monolithic, many parties that vie for power. Uh, Billie said, we have a video up about the coming civil wars, and I asked Billie 2-3 years ago, about, does that mean that we will have, yes, America will be wrecked? The people, the good people in the country can do nothing. The powerful ones, they're going to just take it, and there will be nothing that people can do. And they won't, because they're getting so passive. People are just too passive, too helpless, too contaminated with silly stuff, belief systems that they think that Trump was far and away the lesser of two evils. Had Hillary Clinton been elected, we'd probably all be dead by now. She would have pushed for that nuclear war with Russia. Russia is better prepared than people know. And it's been
Yeah.
in the material for so long, saying, do not provoke Russia. They're not looking for war with you. They haven't attacked you. But our policies, that these demons in politics, I mean, to use a loose term here, They are going to press, they're going to demonize Russia. Billy wrote a year ago, whatever it was, about America, NATO will set up bases in northern Germany to provoke, and they did it 6 months later. They're never wrong about it. What does it take for people? They want to keep on reading garbage online and thinking imaginary aliens, saints and saviors and ascension to 5D, and not, it's all nonsense. How did people get this goddamn dumb? Really?
Mind control, maybe.
And
I don't know. You know what I think it is one idiot starts leading the pack and the rest of them follow. I mean,
down, yeah,
people want to be followers. They don't want to be leaders nowadays. Like I said, no one wants to think for themselves. They just want to, oh, my buddy thinks this, so I'll think the same thing. Well, I'm sorry. My brain doesn't work that way. I
thank
will do
goodness.
my own thinking. You know?
Thank goodness. Well, in 1981, I wrote a song. I was looking for somebody to believe in, someone who'd save the day when things go wrong, someone who'd live and die for all the things I only cry for, someone who'd change my life, change it with a song. I was looking for someone with all the answers, someone who'd show me how to play the game and be stronger than the sadness, all the anger and the madness. But how long can I hide the one I'm trying to find? I'll be my own hero. I'll make my own magic. I'll change the endings that used to be tragic. I'll be all I am without armor or mask. I'll be my own hero at last. So I don't need someone to come and save me or show me how my life's supposed to be. I keep on taking chances, finding my own answers. Love's the only savior I will ever need. I'll be my own
Ah,
hero. It goes on. So I used to sing.
that is great, man. Did you publish that?
Well, I recorded it, but my recording wasn't that good. There's a woman who's recorded it, put it online. Two people. I used to be invited by a guy named Tony Robbins, to sing that song at his firewalk things. He's a motivational speaker. And then when my daughter and I produced a film on 5 women who overcame a lot of really rough stuff, abuse, neglect, rape, and so I had a woman sing the song in that film. It's an award-winning film. It's on my website. It's called Breaking the Silence. And then this woman, Piali, she she recorded it, and it's online too. I could probably find it, send you a link to it. It's a really it's one of my better songs, I think. I mean, I've written
Yeah,
lots
send me
of
the
songs.
link. Send me the link. I would love to get
Oh,
into that. That's we got to have you come back, Michael.
we'll do it. We'll do it. No doubt
No,
about
but
it.
that's great. I just love having you here. Me and you are on the same wavelength, honey. And once you once you plug in with someone on the same wavelength, we could go have coffee and talk all night long. Pajama party.
Well, this is the good news. We can do this almost anytime we want, and people, can join us if they want to, and ask questions and all the rest, and then go and freely explore uh, the whole thing. They can, go ahead and see if this MEIER case is something more than they even think it is. Could it possibly be something more than they think it is? Could it possibly be true? All this stuff. So I can, by the way, I just found the recording of it. So if you want, I can send you that link in an email or something.
Hmm. Yeah, you
And
can also post it in the chat. You and I are the
oh,
only two that can post in the chat right now.
okay. So what do I do? Click on myself or chat or what?
Open
Okay,
chat.
enter message. Okay, so I'll put this
Go
in
over to
there.
the side of your screen. It'll say open chat.
I got it. And then it
Okay,
says
and then
enter
down in the
message.
bottom, enter message. Put your link there and hit the send
Oh,
message button.
okay. The text chat is disabled, it says,
Yeah, but not for you and me.
but it's not letting me do it.
Okay, well, and then I'll have to open the chat back up. Let me allow it.
No, sure. Let them jump around.
All right. Behave,
Okay.
people, or I'll have to smack your hands again tonight. And I don't like doing that.
You, you
Okay,
know,
so
yeah.
let's get on to the pole shift, which we are in the beginnings of it right now.
Right.
the flooding, the mass cracks in the earth, the sinkholes, the extreme cold weather we're having, the intense tornadoes. What exactly did what kind of information did the Polarians say that we were going to go through, and how long will this, I mean, I know we're in the beginnings of it, and this is horrible what we're experiencing now. It's
This
going to
ain't
get
nothing.
worse. That's
Well,
what I say. It's going to get
yeah.
worse.
As I said, Billie foretold beginning in 1951. We have it all online. I mean, people can go ahead and, send requests or anything for, information. If they email me, I answer all my emails, and tons of information on my site. In 51 and thereafter, even as far back as 48, all of this stuff was foretold, and Billie started to publish in 51. The environmental destruction is no longer climate change, it's climate destruction. Environmental destruction will continue unabated from here on. We will see now. In 48, Billie was told that we should watch central Italy because there are going to be a lot of earthquakes there that will uh, actually precede huge volcanic eruptions that are coming from 5 different volcanoes in Italy and many more around the world. um, we will see an increase in the tsunamis and earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, storms, tornadoes, the walls of fire, the stuff that happened in California with the fires, that was foretold too, that there'll be more of that in America. And it's not necessarily that, people think, oh, the government's using secret weapons. No, somebody I know is who spent a lot of time in sciences explained that one of the high possibilities is that what happened there is because of a lot of imbalances and fracking and this and that, and methane is a highly flammable substance. There's methane being released all over the world, especially now with the melting of permafrost and stuff. We're going to just see crazy stuff. By the way, yes, MEIER a year ago in October, I think, of last year, I think it was, he did explain there's going to be a global financial collapse. In 2006, I asked Billie, was the fundamental reason for the Iraq wars oil? And he said no. And I went, what? He says the fundamental reason is your dollar. And if things go a certain way, you may as well roll cigarettes with your paper money. That's 13 years ago. We are closing in on that event, on the worldwide global financial crash, and what's going to happen in this country to the citizens here. And what he simply said in those predictions, the American people will be dispossessed of everything. There will be these huge taxes and restrictions, a cashless society. And, unfortunately, there it is. And we can look and see maybe that's not true. Just because Billie MEIER or the Pleiadians say something, assuming they really exist, does it make it true? Start to read some of the financial people like Bill Bonner. He's an American financial guy he's an expat. He lives outside of the country most of the time and sometimes here. He's talking about all this stuff. It's just a matter of time. He's showing that all the hyped figures about the great economy, all this stuff, isn't so. It's actually worse than it was. But the way figures are used and manipulated, we are in those times. I don't worry about the pole shift because it's less immediate. I am more concerned about the relationships with people in my community, what's happening that we can have some control over, that we have to pay attention to. And the pole shift is something, it's been set in motion or exacerbated by human actions, blowing up, A-bombs all over the place, and
Yeah.
massive imbalancing of the weights and structures on the earth where we overbuild dams and cities, and that also leads to earthquakes too, because the earth collapses in on itself from that, as well as from the extraction of petroleum and natural gas, all warned about in the MEIER material for decades. What are we waiting for? And
Right.
honestly, I see the word fear there, Joe, and it's not about promoting that, because there's enough promotion of fear. in the mainstream and the alternative news with no answers, no solutions, because all they do, they want to elect the next imbecile always, who's going to solve the problems the last imbecile created. This is what politics is, and people never learn from it. It's always the next guy who comes along and says, oh, I think the people want to hear this. They want to hear that. Okay, I'm going to promise this, and I'm going to promise, and that's the next casualty being created right there. People, MEIER said long ago, real leadership will no longer come from the top down. It can only come very painstakingly from the ground up. People are
Yeah.
going to have to come to terms with what's happening. It isn't me. It isn't Billie. We're not. I certainly don't have any influence or
Magic
control
wand. Yeah,
or magic wand. We can only
exactly.
bring forward. Here's the information. Are
Okay,
you
my
ready?
next question is the inbound planet. The Polarian did tell Billie about the inbound planet, correct?
Well, it's not a Planet X thing. What they told him about, there is an asteroid coming towards Earth that our scientists discovered 23 years after Billie published the warning about it. NASA discovers this asteroid 23 years later. Then they pretend like there's no danger to it, and they know how big it is. Then they change their size estimate to within 25 meters of what MEIER said. Then all the warnings that the Pleiadian gave about how to deflect it suddenly become a topic of conversation. Good, fine, do it right, because otherwise it's going to hit here either in 2029 or 2036. And if it isn't deflected, it will hit. And that will change things on this planet forever. But don't
Yes.
tell, certain people, because they don't want to know. They want to wring the last dollar out of everything. That's all that's important. People that call themselves scientists who deny climate change, deny the dangers from the incoming out, all they care about, their funding, their money, their tenure, their so-called reputations. This country is built on that, unfortunately. You have to really fight hard against those non-values to maintain your sanity and to try to make a difference. Otherwise, when this stuff starts going down the drain en masse, it'll be too late for people to do much. They'll be just running around busy trying to save their butts. And
Yeah.
and then, what
Well,
good
I
is it?
got a
Well,
good idea, Michael. Let's just make it illegal to be so rich. I mean, when you get to a certain point, everything after that has to go towards to help the homeless.
well, look, there are things that definitely need rebalancing, but it starts in our
Exactly.
thinking, in what we think is valuable, why we value one job over another, when everything, you can't have a corporation that becomes wealthy and successful without everybody all the way down the line fulfilling their tasks and duties. So everything's important. So why don't we equalize more? Oh, well, I'm more important. When you start talking to people about that, oh, it's communism. No, if we understood value, if we understood not being greedy, and the Pleiadians don't live with that kind of a system. They can have whatever they want, but they have to continuously contribute to their society. And because they can
Exactly.
have what they want, right? They don't amass stuff. They're not worried about building the next biggest house and amassing bank accounts, because what for? You can have what you need. You need a craft,
Exactly.
so it's
And
too simple.
if someone was disabled or ill, I'm sure they didn't throw them out in the street.
Here's the shame about that. I think I was talking about that on a video, and it's this: we spend trillions of we can't even imagine on so-called defense budget. And think about it for a minute. To the north of us is an industrialized country, Canada, which, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't launched an attack on us. To the south of us are primarily third world countries that we've exploited the heck out of. And if anything, yes, they're exporting people to come here and break through and violate our laws and all that stuff, but they're not yet coming through with tanks and all. Who knows, maybe they will. But our closest enemies are separated by thousands of miles of oceans to our east and to our west. So why do we, a country with no natural enemies of significance, need trillions of dollars? Well, because American interests are threatened overseas. Really? American interests. So you tell me that if we spend trillions of dollars to protect ourselves against people that we're attacking. They're not attacking us, but the human being in society, we don't really care about them, or we would set up something that worked. I don't know, before, something that worked so everybody had reasonable health care. You're talking about protecting people. The Russians aren't filling our hospitals. It isn't the Latin Americans or the Canadians that are causing people to, have cancer and heart disease and all the rest of stuff. Why don't we get our priorities straight? Because we've bought into the BS from politicians and insurance, all the greed. We just can't get enough money. So,
Exactly.
we have crazy stuff where we have the most sophisticated weapons that we have to go and send to attack people who never attacked us. Oh, well, they're shooting at us. Well, what are we doing over there? That's not our country.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers said avoid foreign, involvements and
Right.
interventions. Oh, no, those are American interests. We don't like
Why
it.
do we have to send troops overseas and build all these bases? Why can't those troops stay here and repair our roads? I mean, all the money we're spending over there, we could repair our infrastructure.
Yeah, but it won't happen because all of these people, and that includes the president, when you get down to all of the vested interests he has and everybody else in government. See, people, with the exception of someone as wealthy as him, although he may still want to become wealthier, these people go into politics to ultimately feather their own nests. They go in and they come out as millionaires, and they didn't go in as millionaires.
Yeah.
And it's all because they sell off everything to the highest bidder. We deserve what we get as a collective nation. If this country goes down and is blown to bits, it means that the collective consciousness of America created its own destruction. And that's exactly, basically, what the prophecies and predictions are saying. And this just sounds like words being spoken. Give it a few years and see what comes of this place. It's underway now. There's nothing, people are not willing to really speak up. They want to keep on playing oh, it's Bernie. No, it's Hillary. No, it's Trump. No, it's this one. Stop it. None of these people, none of them, not a one of them is capable of telling you how to live your life. And you're going to go and vote for some imbecile because that's what we do every 4 years. That's not what I'm going to do if there was somebody up there who was reasonable, intelligent, and could actually affect something, well, let's put them in office and give them a chance to do it. But it's over and over. It's the same thing. Yes, I think Trump probably accomplished some things. He didn't go to war yet with Russia. That's his main accomplishment. Trying to keep us out of globalization. Good work.
Interesting that you had said that if they put someone up there, I would vote for him. One of my listeners had, have we got an echo going here? Wait a minute.
I hear you.
Okay. One of my listeners had posted in the comment in the reviews that I should be the press secretary for the White House. And I said, oh my God, I tell the truth. Do you know how long I last as the press secretary? They'd put a bullet in my head before I
That wouldn't go well.
Don't elect me. Don't elect me.
Yeah, if you get elected, demand a recount immediately. Tell them
Yeah, she said, well, then honesty would have to come back into play. Let's make it happen, won't we? And
we're protected against that. Don't worry, that's not going to happen. I've got to go soon. Do you have one or two really good questions that you want to bang out there?
Well, actually, I think we pretty much covered, except for, why don't you give us one or two predictions that you think that will be happening in the near future?
Well, that's hard to say because we're in the midst of we're in the process. For instance, we will see the eruption of those aforementioned volcanoes. Also, they foretold that the undersea volcanoes, which we didn't know anything about until recently, are going to become active as well. We are going to see the intensity of the shifts, in the climate. Now, people say, oh, ha, 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 global warming. They don't understand. Global warming is part of the imbalance in climate change. So it will warm and then it will plunge and it will become very erratic. It is already. You're going to see, we're in what they foretold. Temperature extremes. We're in it. So other things that they foretold. Well, American policies are going to get more aggressive towards Russia, which will ultimately lead to destruction of America. That's probably still a ways down the road. We're going to see, geopolitical things, probably terrorism in unexpected ways and places. Um, we're going to see. I suggest that what people do is they go to the prophecies and predictions section, for instance,
Hmm.
on my They Fly website. There's a whole bunch of them. They start read through them. They look at the blog and see, because I'm always publishing. We have corroborations for probably about 250 of these specific things
Okay, Michael,
corroborated.
what would you suggest for the people that are listening that are hearing all these things that we are about
Right,
to go through? What
right.
would you suggest for them to do? Prepare,
Yeah.
uh, try to stock up, I
Well,
mean, what can we do to try to help
okay.
ourselves?
Well, some of it is the obvious things that other people have said, such as, yeah, be prepared in the physical sense, and food and water and supplies, clothing, things for temperature changes. But the most important thing you could really do would be to begin to read and study the spiritual teaching, because that teaches us how to think. We are not taught how to think. You know who knows how to think? A lot of the so-called evil elite. They know part of it because they know the part about how to get the things that you want. They don't have the conscience going. They don't care about cause and effect and what happens that's negative to people because of their stuff. That's very important stuff. Read the free stuff in the spiritual teaching. Get Meier's books. We have new books out. There's books like The Might of the Thoughts and The Way to Live. These are things that you could read for the rest of your life over and over, because they're so instructive and they're so deep yet simply expressed that when a person reads it and they think about it, they start to create a process in themselves that improves their lives. And I get
Okay,
this.
now I have one more question.
Yes,
The
yes.
Polarians are so more advanced than us. Why won't they just come and help us straighten this mess out, or are they not allowed to?
Well, a couple of answers. Are they? That's what they've been trying to do in a way that's allowed for 13,000 plus years. They're not allowed to see the gods of our past, all these gods, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, the book of this and that. These were ETs most of the time that were here, that were powerful thousands and thousands of years ago. And people didn't, you see something descending from the sky, and the guy says, I am thy Lord, thy God, I have created you and everything that crawls, but go kill those people for me. Oh, great. That's the God of mercy. You know, terrific fellow. And if you don't dip it when you die, I'm going to be dipping you in hot lead over and over and over. Dip you again. It's really bad. So we buy into this stuff. And the Pleiadian went through their own evolution. They had, they go back a very long time. They had space traveling ancestors with all the tech you could imagine, and even high level abilities. They went out there like Star Wars on steroids, running around, dominating planets. They killed people, they enslaved, and then they, in their own societies, they were really nuts for a long time. And then 52,000 years ago, they finally settled down. They had the spiritual teaching brought to them. They realized their connection to all things. They had spirit teachers of the spiritual teaching who educated the people, and then they took on their responsibility to help others in other worlds
To
to
evolve.
evolve, yeah, to get out of the knuckle dragging state where hit, take that, that's mine. So
Right.
we've had their help, but we don't know how to accept help because we've been lost in all this delusion about Son of God coming down. I died for your sins. Nail me up again. I'm back here to chant my name. This deity, that one, this mullah, that rabbi, this belief. How can it possibly even make sense to anybody that there's only one true religion and it's each one of them is the only true? Oh God, it's, come on, cold water, take a shower, wake up, you know, study, think, get logical. It
It's
is.
so funny on the History Channel right now. I'm downloading all the conspiracy theories and all
I'll give you
kinds
a
of
headache.
stuff about secret societies and Oh my God, I've learned so much in the last couple days that my brain hurts, And I thought,
Sure.
boy, I could do shows for until I'm 99 here with all this stuff, but
Endless.
it is. It's endless. I mean, have you ever heard of the Brotherhood of the Bloods?
No, uh, I mean, not by that name.
They
Here's the
dress
thing.
like the Ku Klux Klan, and they beat themselves on the back to simulate the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. They feel that they have his mummified body, but it's a secret because it's a secret society, and they have a
Right.
vial of his blood that everybody
Yeah.
comes and kisses this vial. I mean,
Well,
it's like, my
this
God.
is all, it's so primitive. Oh, see, Judeo-Christian religions and Islam, they're very primitive because these came, even though they were given the truth, and then they took it and made it crazy, like, yeah, self-flagellation. So at least they're saving somebody else the trouble of slapping them beside the head and telling them they're stupid. So they do it themselves. But here's something that we didn't talk about tonight, but this is something, we can maybe end on this note because we give people something to throw stones at. So I mentioned that Enoch was one of the contactees and prophets. The Pleiadians worked with them. Here's the other ones. So we'll start with Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, right? Emmanuel, Muhammad, and Billy. Now, wait, who's Emmanuel? Well, according to the information in the MEIER material, never did there live a man who had the name Jesus Christ. The name of the man was Emmanuel, and in the Old Testament, 7:14, it says, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. In Matthew 1:23 in the New Testament, it says, one time there, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. And guess what? He was a real man. He was a contactee. He was a prophet. Many of the things that were said about him were true, although they were distorted. A lot of stuff is absolute baloney. Nobody raises anybody from the dead. And was he crucified? Yes. Did he die there? No. Oh, did he float up to heaven? No. This is all explained in a book that's called the Talmud Emmanuel, newly published within the past couple of years. You will find out that Emmanuel, falsely known as Jesus, had 17 female disciples, all of whom were, swept out by the church, so there'd be no tainting of this holy scripture by the female lineage. And it explains how he did the healings that he did do. His mother, who was not a virgin, and how after the crucifixion, after he was ministered to by people who had come from India, prepared for this event. Remember the so-called missing years of Jesus, when Emmanuel was being trained by highly adept masters, if you will, in the Himalayas. He was also being tutored by Gabriel, who was an extraterrestrial from the Pleiadians. These are the things that, why do you think people have been shooting at MEIER for so darn long? Well, I see there's a question here. So maybe, Joe the Mafia, is there a question that I could try to answer while I've introduced all of the other stuff, and then I'll let everybody ponder this stuff? No, and his name was not Yahshua or Yeshua. His name was Emmanuel. And the corruptions of the name, or in India they called him Isa too, because there's a tomb for him and for Mary in India, where he died at the age of 110. His mother died at 48. He married an Indian woman. He didn't marry Mary Magdalene. This is the stuff. This has been in the keeping of the Pleiadians for a long time, and MEIER is the co-discoverer of these texts in Jerusalem, in the ancient tomb in which Emmanuel had been temporarily buried. People might want to know what this whole thing is about. So,
Okay,
no,
Joe,
not wrong.
we're gonna let Joe
Yeah,
ask the question, and then
please.
we'll let you go because I know we're keeping you over tonight.
It's okay. Let's do it.
Go ahead, Joe. You go ahead and answer the question.
Is that it about the sun? Have you heard about the possibility of two physical suns? There is another body, there's a binary star or something, and that information is in the MEIER case. There's nothing much we can do with it, except probably when the scientists discover what he's already published, because we've published stuff that they've only, recently discovered. Billie years and decades ago. So there is information about that. And what's happening with that type of information, it's interesting to follow. I was just up at the USGS here in Flagstaff giving information to a man who was connected to the Mars rover project. I'm trying to reach some of the other people connected to the moon mission, many different things, because MEIER's information precedes their discoveries by 32 years. So the way, and it's an uphill battle, because you bring this stuff to scientists and some of them, can't handle it. Now, here's the thing. I'll perhaps leave us on this. 2 years ago, I got a call on a January Saturday morning from a guy named Joe, wanted to know if I was the representative for the MEIER case. I said, yes. He says, well, I'm an investigator. Didn't tell me what kind. And I think it might be a hoax. Would you talk to me about it? I said, all you want. So for 3 months, Joe and I went back and forth. USGS, we went back and forth. And what happened was he disappeared. And then 5 months later, he reappeared, called me on a Saturday morning. He said, okay, will you still talk to me? I said, sure. And I said, what are you interested in? He says, well, I'm going to tell you who I am, and then I'm going to tell you about your Billie MEIER case. I said, go ahead. He said from 1967 to 71, or somewhere right around there, 4 or 5 years, he said he was the top investigator for the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation, tasked with protecting the security of the United States of America. He personally vetted and supervised hundreds and hundreds of people, military, political, people seeking higher office, some who could have their finger on the nuclear trigger, ferreting out moles and spies. He said, don't take my word for it, check your email, and there in the inbox, all of those recommendations, the highest recommended guy they'd ever had, blah, blah, real deal. I said, okay, thank you. Now, what do you want to tell me? He says, I'm going to tell you about your Billie MEIER case. He said, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it when we were speaking, so I applied the same protocols that I use in the military to determine truth, what have you, find the facts. And your Billie MEIER UFO case is 100% ironclad authentic. I will take on any skeptic in your behalf and defend it. He did. And we have his article on my website. He shut down the skeptical challenges. It's ironclad. He says, look, I went to your 64 evidence where Billie is written up in a newspaper in India in 64. He's got a photo album with 80 UFO photos in 1964. You still have about a dozen of them. If you cannot prove to me where he got 80 UFO photos, that they're being described by a reporter, and you can look at them now all these years later, he says, just tell the skeptics, go home. You're stupid people. You don't know what you're doing. Get out of here. And he did that to a few of them. So we have him. We've got an ex-NASA aerospace guy, the former vice president operations of Orbital Flight Systems, the competitor for Musk, by the way, lawyers and people who've all examined the actual evidence and the previous analyses, and they say, hey, this is real. That's it. This is where it becomes very difficult for the know-it-alls, whether they're religious, political, or scientific. They don't know how to think, and they can't evaluate evidence. Fortunately, Joe spelled it out. All you have to do is read his article and do what he instructs, take the evidence and go through it that way, and you're left with the inescapable conclusion, oh my gosh, this is real. Does it make everything true? No, you have to figure that out for yourself. So we've, touched on a few things tonight. We certainly could do it again.
I'll tell you what, Michael, I'll get a hold of you. I'll send you out an email, and we will book you for one of my Fridays in the month of April. How does that sound?
That's fine. And here's a quick answer about what if someone doesn't trust NASA. Remember, this guy that I was just talking about, Joe Tisk, he was the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation investigator, expert military man, and he even says in his article, here's the protocols. You don't have to take my word for it. This is the way you examine something, and means and motive and opportunity, and answer these questions. You will come to your own inescapable conclusion if you simply do the process. It has nothing to do with whether he's Joe Tisk and he's Joe Blow, or he's Joe the Mafia. What you need to do is follow the steps that are, processed and proceeded in any scientific examination. And I had a scientist from the USGS say to me the other day, because I even showed him some of this evidence, and he's standing there, and he said, well, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And I said to him, no, they don't. And he looks at me, and I said, yeah, we've got plenty of extraordinary evidence, but that's a prejudiced point of view. Was it really extraordinary that the sun goes around the earth? It was 500 years ago, but it certainly isn't. So all you need is to follow scientific methodology. And there you go, step by step, and then you get the inescapable conclusions. And there you are. So let's do it again in April.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. We've got people that want to ask questions. You're going to have to save them for when Michael comes back. And we'll touch on some of the adventures that Billie MEIER went with the Pleiades when he actually went in their crafts and took them around. You can tell us his adventures that he had with them when you come back.
Yeah, and I can say one more thing then to anybody listening or who hears the show later. If you decide you want like a film or a book or anything from the website, because remember, there's hundreds and hundreds of free articles. If you want something and you want to buy it, just mention Bad Baby and I will add a free DVD with any purchase, shipping included. There it is.
Oh, that's sweet of you, honey. Okay, well, thank you so much, Michael. You are just a delight to have on, a free thinker, and I love you so deeply. And tell your wife I send my love to her, too.
I sure will. I'm smiling with them. All right, dear. Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And everybody, that's Michael Horn. We are going to have him back next month. I hope you all enjoyed the show. And I am going to have Dr. Richard Allen Miller on next week, one of my favorite guests. He always cracks me up. He's another one of my cutie patooties. And I just want to thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a wonderful weekend and a safe week. We'll see you next Friday night. And remember, Bad Baby loves you.